We're grilling the candidates, and tonight I'm grilling Councilman Scott Smith. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Well, you're welcome.
First step in grilling the candidates is getting good ingredients, getting into Myers. Ingredients in hand, it's time to grill the candidate.
Tell me a little bit about where you came from and how you ended up here in Highland.
Well, I grew up in North Utah County in Pleasant Grove, graduated from high school there, and then through my educational opportunities, I went BYU, University of Utah, where I got my medical degree, and then I went back and lived in North Carolina for 7.5 years. I went to Duke for my family medicine residency and met my wife there. She was living in Chapel Hill, and I did a master's of public health up in Boston during that time. But we decided after we got married and started having a family that we wanted to live close to one set of grandparents, because as people age, it's good to have their family. And I come from a very small family. I just have a younger brother and an older half-sister. And so we decided to move back here, and we found a home in Highland, and we've been here ever since. We've been here almost 33 years.
Wow.
So we like to think of ourselves as Highlanders.
Absolutely.
Which, yes.
What was it that brought you around to running for city council?
Well, I think what happens with a lot of people is there's a particular issue, and I was concerned about taxing. I think in the early part of the century, the city had been growing fast, and there was a lot of bonding going on, and I think there was a lot of concerns about that. There was issues about, our neighborhood being affected by the road, and there was a lot of different things. So I decided to get involved and try to make a difference. And I actually organized and carried through the first successful referendum petition in Highland citywide. And it had to do with the road tax bond, which we took to the council, and they decided to withdraw it. Because when they looked at it, they probably didn't have the finances to really, finance that bond over the years. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I made a difference there. We had over 2,000 signatures on that bond. So I decided to get involved, and it's been a great experience since. The main issues, I think, that face Highland right now is issues of growth. So we're in another phase of rapid growth. I mean, the big rural fields and farms that were here when I moved here 32 years ago, the population of Highland was 5,000 people.
Oh, wow.
When I grew up in Pleasant Grove, it was 500. But now we're a city of 20,000 people, and the last kind of farmland is being turned into homes and different things. And I think as a city, if we plan well and use our zoning, we can make Highland and continue to make Highland a great place to live. But I'm very opposed to high density housing. I think there's lots of opportunities for people to be involved in that in other cities. But I like the rural feel we have, the open space feel we have in Highland. And so I've been really pushing for lower density. And the rest of Highland's pretty much zoned R140. And if people understand that, the lots can be between a half to a full acre, depending on how they work that through. But I like having yards and places for our kids to play, and parks and trails.
We're unique that way.
It's quality of life.
Yeah.
And that's where I disagree with neighboring cities. They have their own paradigms. But the thing in Highland I think is most important is quality of life. And that's what we see on every survey. And I've been adamant about that. And the other thing that we really face is there's always, as cities grow in different things, there's always one city trying to annex parts of another city. I mean, we've had issues with the property south of Lone Peak. A lot of efforts there for American Fork to annex it. We kept it in Highland. We're going through another issue now with Lehigh wanting a section of northwestern Highland that was in the original annexation agreement in 1999 to go to Highland. And and my concern is if we don't protect our borders, if we don't protect our boundaries, then we have all the problems and the impact of higher density without any of the benefits of the growth there, which is property tax and all the other things that come with it. Really, the last property tax thing we had was a decrease, and that stayed solid for 11 years. And I don't think there was one of the council people that were really pushing property tax, and I just said, how can you raise property tax when the federal government's raining money on you?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you make that safe? But, it makes sense to increase the water fee, and because you've got to have some reserves there, and our infrastructure is aging. And you were there when we found out that 2 of the wells were failing.
Right.
So stuff like that. I don't know. There's no imminent property tax increases, and we're not going to increase any fees. Because the roads, I think we're in the 4th year of the roads, and I think that fee is just set up for 7 to 10 years, and hopefully we'll get everything fixed.
I've seen in the last handful of years, you guys handle the road issue, making sure that police and fire are funded, and just recently the open space took that on. There's been some huge issues.
Well, I've worked on the open space. I've never lived in open space, but I heard about it the first time I ran in 2009 and met with a lot of people who were just kind of frustrated with it. So, as I've said many times, and I get trouble saying this, the concept of those open space neighborhoods was good, but the actual design could have been done better. What they did is they created a bunch of orphan space, and the city can't maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a problem, and so people they have a higher expectation because they pay that $240 a year basically extra, which when you consider how much we pay property tax that just goes to Highland, that's significant.
It is, and they have expectations to go along with
it. So the expectations are things are going to be well manicured and all this stuff. So it sets a false expectation. I like to keep working. We made some good progress Tuesday.
It was astounding.
I know. We resolved 2 or 3 neighbors' issues that we've been working on for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and the nice thing is that money that they generate will go back into the parks and trails. And it'll, get playgrounds in there, maintain the trails. It'll benefit everybody, where those little orphan pieces that were oftentimes weed covered never benefited anybody.
Right.
And so I'm pleased that I've been involved in that over the years. There's a really good spirit right now.
Yeah.
I would love to serve with Kurt as mayor in this same group. I just enjoy them a lot, and whoever comes on to Kurt's place, I think they'll be great.
It's not always easy with a room full of people to ask those tough questions.
And that's true, and oftentimes I'm the minority vote on a vote. But, if I feel strongly about an issue, I kind of vote what I think is right, and I think that's what you want in a council person. But as you brought up, I think it's important to avoid groupthink. So a lot of times it's easy to say, we've got a great staff. I think the city staff is very good, and they think through things. But one of the things is most of the staff does not live in Highland. So as the council elected officials, we live in Highland. We know the issues better, and so sometimes the staff has very good changes they want to make in the code and different things, but they really need the feedback from the council. For example, banning social dancing.
Right. The Footloose Amendment.
Footloose Amendment. And I understand where they were coming from on that, but it's kind of like, how does that look? And I think, Kurt was very forthright in bringing that up.
Yeah.
So, but I like to ask questions and say, look, let's look at it different ways, because my feeling is when you look at all facets of some legislation and make some compromises and discuss it, and sometimes you even have to table it, and look at it in the future, you make better decisions. And, because I think sometimes people just think, we don't want to be here for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, which we oftentimes are, and let's just get through the agenda so we can go home. And I find that's not good. And I don't think we should always assume that everything that the staff wants is best for Highland.
Right.
And so we need to question that, and not saying that the staff isn't great, but at the same time say, does this really work for Highland?
Finding that balance seems
Well,
an important
and
thing.
let me give another example. I come from a family that had small businesses. And so I grew up in that. I understand concerns and different things. And we have some small businesses. For example, Ace Hardware, which has been a successful business in Highland and generates a lot of direct sales tax and a lot of services. But, I had to kind of stand up and say, it doesn't make sense to put a road through their parking lot.
Yeah.
And because they don't have enough parking now. And that seemed like that was a much harder thing to do than I thought it should be. And I used the word common sense probably way too many times and got in trouble. But because I don't think I'm the only one that has common sense. But, it just, you just look at things. And so I look at things different. My profession is to try to solve problems and look at different ways. And so I think I bring a unique perspective that way. And I deal with people and emotions and sickness and that in my profession. And I've often joked a little bit that people say, well, why would you want to do city council? Because you have to deal with problems and things. But I said the difference between city council and being a physician is people come to me in my practice and they're sick and angry, and city council, they're just angry. So it's refreshing. I'm sorry. So,
true, though.
but I love it.
Yeah.
I enjoy kind of trying to problem solve. I think first and foremost, I have experience. And there's something called institutional knowledge. And I think it's good to have some people who have been, one, long-term residents, who have a feel for the issues of a city that's been growing rapidly over the last 30 years, and someone who also has had experience and doesn't have to learn all the ropes. I bring a lot of experience, I bring kind of common sense, I bring problem solving, and I've worked with 12 different city council members, and we've disagreed, sometimes really strongly, and the debates have been spirited, but at the same time there's not one of those people that I don't consider to be a friend. So I had a councilman the other day who had served 10 years ago, and we were talking about open space issues, and he said to me, you and I used to disagree, but he says, we still consider each other to be a friend. So I think you can disagree and still leave the room and be friends, because sometimes I've seen some people, if you don't agree with them, then you're their enemy.
Yeah,
and I just think that's not right.
Yeah.
I mean, because we all want what's best for Highland,
Yeah.
but we should be able to do it in a civil way. I've been in trouble with the last 4 mayors at some point, but I consider them all to be a friend.
Yeah.
And I served with Mayor Franson on the North Point service district, basically over the garbage transfer station. I served with him for a year, and he and I used to have real spirited debates and things, but we're friends.
Yeah.
So I just think that's the way it should be.
Well, good luck to you, and thanks for letting me grill you a little bit. You ready to eat some grilled chicken?
You bet.
It's the spicy grilled chicken sandwich.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. Okay. See what this is about. Yep.
That's good.
Little taste of summer.